Hey guys, tonight we journey to the shadowed alleys of old Prague where whispers curl from centuries-old stones and the air always seems just a little too still. You're arriving just after dusk, suitcase in hand, drawn by a rumor, a local legend they won't print in the glossy brochures. There's a bell tower here that hasn't chimed in over 400 years, not because it's broken, but because people are scared of what happens when it rings. Street lamps flicker as you cross the Charles Bridge, their orange glow pooling on ancient cobblestones slick with mist. Above you looms the silhouette of the tower, narrow, crooked, leaning ever so slightly, like it's trying to get a better look at you. It's said the last person to ring the bell vanished before finishing their shift, leaving only a smear on the stairwell wall. But hey, probably just a spooky urban legend, right? You pass beneath a stone arch where pigeons coo softly, though none seem to perch on the tower. Odd. A low hum buzzes at the back of your skull like static. You shake it off. Just jet lag, or maybe that suspicious airport espresso. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you all tune in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The tower door creaks open with less effort than expected. Inside, the air is cool and metallic, iron and dust, and something fainter, something like ozone after a storm. A spiral staircase hugs the wall, spiraling upward into darkness. You half expect bats. None come, just silence. Footsteps echo yours alone for now. Midway up a windowless room branches off. You step in and freeze. Against the far wall stands the bell, not hanging high like in the movies, but resting upright on a bed of cracked timbers. It's massive, easily 12 feet tall, its surface worn to a dull patina, with streaks of black running like tears down its side. The inscription around its rim is Latin, but scratched and warped like something tried to erase it. Your fingers hover above the etchings. They tingle before you touch. According to the plaque mounted beside it, unconvincingly modern, someone must have added it. For tourists, the bell was forged in 1583 by one Master Jiri Horak, a bellmaker of considerable skill and reputation. The piece was commissioned by the city council, yet records of the transaction abruptly end with a death notice and a blot of red ink. Oddly theatrical accounting. You look up. The tower's interior rises another 50 feet, a hollow shaft open all the way to the rafters. Thick ropes dangle like dead vines. Birds once nested here, judging by the ancient feathers, but now even the air feels abandoned. There's a presence to the place, a hum that isn't sound. It's pressure, weight. You back away from the bell, pretending your feet aren't trying to rush you. They totally are. On the far wall, something catches your eye, a dusty shelf, half collapsed under the weight of what looks like dozens of leather-bound journals. You blow dust off the first one, sneeze loudly because of course, and squint at the front. Property of J.H. Tower Records. Do not remove naturally, you remove it. The handwriting is tight, aggressive, as if each letter were stabbed into the page. The first few entries are boring metal deliveries, forged temperatures, a complaint about uncooperative apprentices with slippery ethics and greasier fingers. Classic artisan drama. But things shift by the 10th page. Third ring midnight sound does not dissipate as expected. Bell's skin glowed faintly. No explanation. The pigeon died again. You pause. The pigeon died again. That's not normal Bellmaker documentation, unless 16th century OSHA was way more relaxed than today. Historians still argue whether Jiri Horak was simply an obsessive craftsman or if he truly believed what he wrote. Some fringe theorists claim he was experimenting with acoustic weaponry centuries ahead of his time. Others say he was merely mad from mercury exposure, which frankly is the go-to excuse for a lot of creepy geniuses in European history. You flip a few more pages. He starts referring to the bell as she. She groaned tonight. She demanded copper. She sang, and my bones felt young. Yeah, it's giving Exorcist meets Blacksmith Weekly. Down in the margin, a later hand has scribbled something in shaky modern pen. Do not listen to her alone. Okay, fun. Outside, the wind picks up. You didn't hear it start, but now it presses against the stone like a tide. A pane of old glass rattles. Somewhere higher up the stairwell, a single step creaks. You freeze. No one's supposed to be here. Your phone flickers, battery drains from 68% to 5% in seconds. Classic Prague reception. For comfort and distraction, you flip back to the diary. The final entry is dated 1584. It reads simply, I completed the tongue. She waits for her voice. If I ring her, the city will change. If I don't, I fear she'll scream on her own. Either way, I do not sleep. I do not dream. The echoes linger. It ends with an ink blot and something that looks like a fingerprint. This is the part where a rational person might leave. You snap a photo. It doesn't save, because of course it doesn't. A slow vibration tickles your shoes. At first you think it's the metro, but no, there's no metro line near this tower. The bell just for a moment seems to shift, like metal settling, or like it exhaled. You definitely don't scream, but you do head for the stairs again, just to, check out the rest of the place. For research. Right. As you ascend the diary under one arm, the air feels warmer. The stones seem newer, smoother. You blink. Was the spiral always this wide? Were the torches always lit? The torches burn low in their sconces, real flame, not the flickering illusion of tourist lighting. Their smoke rises into the spiral above you, vanishing into the tower's throat. You touch one out of sheer disbelief and pull your hand back quickly. Yep, very real, very hot. You glance behind. No flame lights the way you came. Just a long stretch of dark stairs and that deep echoing stillness. Something tells you this part of the tower isn't supposed to exist in the daytime tour schedule. And that's when you hear it, a cough. Human. Raspy. Definitely not yours. You freeze halfway up the stone step. Another cough, closer. A shadow flickers at the top landing, narrow shoulders, long coat, something clutched in one hand. A man bent over a table. You step up slowly, inching around the final curve. The room before you isn't empty. It's a forge, not an abandoned one either. Glowing coals burn low in a hearth. Tools hang on neatly spaced pegs. And hunched over a cluttered table is a man with soot-blackened sleeves and silver-streaked hair bound back by a strip of cloth. He doesn't look up, just mutters, I told them not to temper her under a waning moon. You're about to say something, anything, but he lifts a finger without looking. Don't. The sound listens. Okay, sure. Sound is now a conscious being. No big deal. You ease closer your footsteps, muffled by thick dust. There's parchment everywhere, maps with concentric circles, tuning forks bent at odd angles, what might be a melted church bell, and, yes, a pigeon skeleton nestled in a tiny velvet hammock. This has gone full mad, inventor. Are you Jiri Horak, you ask softly. He doesn't answer, just slides a brass rod into a long leather case, careful like he's putting a baby to bed. I died a long time ago, he says finally, but pieces linger. Bells do that to people. Historians still argue whether Horak died in 1584, as records show, or disappeared during the fire that consumed the original Clockmakers Guildhall that same year. Some accounts describe an unidentified man escaping the blaze with burns that never healed. Others claim the diary you found was recovered decades later from beneath a church floorboard still warm to the touch. You clear your throat. The bell downstairs. It moved. He flinches. Did you touch it? No. Did it touch you? I what? No. He squints at you, then nods like that's answer enough. He stands slowly, joints cracking, and walks to a massive sketch pinned to the stone wall. It shows the bell in strange detail, every imperfection, mapped every groove etched with alchemical symbols. There's a diagram of a human ear beside it. She isn't for calling the faithful, he murmurs. She's for remembering or forgetting, depending on which direction you ring her. You blink. There's a direction he finally looks at you, and, oh, those eyes. Dark, too dark. Not in color, but in depth, like someone who has stared into sound and saw it looking back. In the forge, we strike her left for mourning, right for summoning, middle. The middle opens the city. You open your mouth to press him, but he's already moving again. He retrieves a small wooden box from beneath a workbench and hands it to you. It's light, and inside it lies a single object, a bronze tongue, bell-shaped but elongated, sharpened almost. Not for ringing, you think, but for waking. I was supposed to destroy it, he says, but instead I bound her voice and ran. They thought locking her away would be enough. They built over her bones. You look at the tongue. It thrums in your hand like a tuning fork, like it wants to be inside the bell again. A dusty clock in the corner clicks once. The hour hand inches toward midnight. Horak sucks in a breath as if trying to hold time back. Then crack a sound from below. Metal on stone. The bell! She's stirring, he whispers. You've touched too much. I didn't, but you don't get to finish. The walls vibrate. The flame in the forge flutters sideways like it's running away. A voice, no a tone, echoes up the tower. It's not a word. It's not even music. It's memory. For a moment, you see things that aren't yours. A plague doctor gliding through alleys, a child placing coins under her tongue, a priest burning papers in a panicked rush. Then it's gone. Horak doubles over, coughing violently. When he lifts his head, blood rims his mouth. She's found me again, he gasps. You need to go deeper, beneath her, find the hollow place, where the first casting failed. That's where it all began. You try to help him, but your fingers pass right through his shoulder. He flickers like candlelight in a breeze. Tell them he rasps. Tell them she remembers. And with that, he's gone. Forge, cold, empty. Only the faint smell of copper lingers. You clutch the tongue tight, unsure if it's wise or foolish. Probably both. As you leave the room, the torches extinguish behind you one by one. The stairwell descends like a throat. You pass the main bell chamber again, but now the bell is tilted, just slightly, and the ropes, they're swinging. Someone or something has been here. You press on downward, now following a hidden stair tucked behind a sagging tapestry. It spirals the opposite direction toward the foundation. The stone becomes colder, wet. Moss creeps along the seams. You notice something etched along the wall, every few feet small marks like tally scratches, but written in mirrored Roman numerals. Not creepy at all. Eventually, you reach a low stone door. It's carved with a familiar shape, a bell split down the center with a single eye above it. You press your hand to the stone. The door exhales and opens. The stone door swings inward with a groan that sounds far too much like a sigh. Cold air pours out tinged with rust and old incense like a cathedral buried for centuries. You duck slightly and step inside, blinking as your eyes adjust to the gloom. You're in a chamber circular and low-ceilinged with the unmistakable curve of something ancient. The walls are ringed with niches filled with objects that shimmer dully, melted bells, warped tuning forks, strange copper masks shaped like animal faces. Each one seems to stare back at you in judgment. At the center of the room lies a forge, not active, but ancient. Cold ash lines the floor, and half-melted crucibles rest where someone left them, centuries ago. A large circular mold rests nearby, cracked clean through. It's shaped exactly like the bell upstairs. You kneel to inspect it, running a hand along its rim. A phrase is etched in shaky Latin along the bottom: "She will ring when silence sins." Well, that's delightfully ominous. As you stand, a sound rumbles overhead, thwum, so low it vibrates your sternum. You clutch your chest. The bell. It didn't ring, it growled. You turn to leave, and that's when you hear it. A whisper, no source, no echo, just a voice weaving through your ears like silk. She remembers. You spin. No one there. She dreams in bronze. And then the bell upstairs shifts again, just slightly. The vibrations roll down the walls like a warning or a summons. You decide to do the obvious thing any sensible person would do when surrounded by whispering antiques and predatory architecture. You explore deeper. There's a narrow tunnel in the back, almost hidden behind a collapsed arch. You have to duck and twist sideways to fit. The walls here are covered in more symbols, different this time. Sumerian. Know something older. Carvings that pulse slightly if you don't look directly at them. Fringe theorists say the Bellmaker wasn't the first to build beneath Prague. Some whisper about an even older structure buried below, predating the Celts. A sound temple, perhaps, designed not to amplify, but to trap. Mainstream historians scoff at this naturally. They prefer the idea that Jiri Horak was just a gifted craftsman with a flair for dramatic etchings and a poor work-life balance. But then again, mainstream historians also thought the Voynich manuscript was just a shopping list, so you emerge into a room shaped like an upside-down bell, narrow at the top, wide at the bottom, and strangely resonant. You speak aloud, and your voice comes back to you 5 times, over each echo trailing off at a different pitch. It's like standing in the middle of a music box with broken gears. In the center of the room is a stone anvil, not a metal one-stone. Its surface is scorched and fractured, and upon it rests something metal, but you can't make it out right away. You approach cautiously, your breath fogging slightly. It's a bell tongue, another one, but this one is blackened, twisted, unusable. It's bolted to the anvil as if someone really didn't want it removed. There are dried streaks beneath it. Not blood too black, but maybe old oil or melted metal. The air feels wrong now, thick, as though something's been waiting in this room, listening. You step back and hear a soft tink. A pebble falls from above. You look up. There's a hole in the ceiling, a tiny one, just large enough to see flickering light far, far above. Then a shape moves past it. You bolt from the room, back through the tunnel, up the mossy steps, around the silent forge. But as you return to the main shaft of the tower, you freeze. Because now the bell is hanging, not resting on its side, not leaning, hanging, high above in the rafters, swinging gently, as if caught in some invisible breeze. And beneath it, just beneath, is the rope. It wasn't there before. It pulses slightly. You should not, under any circumstances, pull that rope. So, naturally, you step closer. One small joke to break the tension, you tell yourself, it probably leads to a trap door that drops you into a pit full of clockwork tax collectors or accordion players. But the truth is, you're tempted, deeply, the kind of temptation that speaks in your own voice, and it says, just one pull. You'll understand? This must be what Horak meant by she waits for her voice. The tongue he gave you is the key, but the moment you think of it, your satchel shifts on your shoulder. It's heavier. You reach in. The bronze tongue pulses. You could climb up and install it. You could make the bell whole again. You shake your head. No, that's not how this works. Instead, you lower yourself onto the cold floor and open the diary again. Maybe Horak left a clue. Maybe there's something he discovered too late. And sure enough, you find a passage. If she swings before the tongue is set, the city will forget itself. Names will rot. Stone will soften. The stars will rearrange. Time will loop. She needs a watcher, a watcher. You glance at the bell again. Now it's not just swaying, it's thrumming. There's no wind, but it's moving. The rope lifts slightly, as if someone above is pulling. You're not alone. You step back, retreating toward the shadows of the stairs. And that's when you hear a distinct clatter, metal against metal. From behind the bell, you freeze. Something just stepped into the chamber. You hold your breath. And then a whisper from right beside your ear. She almost remembers your name. You whip around. Nothing but the rope. It jerks just once. A violent, almost petulant tug, like it's getting impatient. You don't move, not a step, not a breath. You just stare at the rope as it swings back into stillness, like a tail that's just lashed out and decided to wait for your next mistake. The bell above it emits the faintest creak metal shifting against its wooden yoke. It's a sound you've heard in old churches, usually accompanied by sunlight birdsong and the warm murmur of pews. But here in the bowels of old Prague, surrounded by whispering walls and forgotten forges, it sounds like the groan of something waking up sore and angry. You back away 1 foot at a time, keeping your eyes locked on the rope. It doesn't move again, yet. You remember what Horak said. Find the hollow place, where the first casting failed. You take one last glance at the bell and duck back into the stairwell, descending farther than you thought possible. The steps are slick now, no longer stone, but something darker. Charred wood, number petrified ash. Each step seems to hum slightly underfoot, a low vibration like distant thunder or something whispering through layers of time. Eventually, you reach a landing. It opens into a cavernous space that shouldn't exist, not under a medieval city with centuries of foundations stacked like lasagna. And yet, here it is, a chamber larger than the bell tower above, and at its center is something that makes you stop breathing altogether, the first bell, or what's left of it. Lying shattered across the chamber floor is an enormous mold of bronze and obsidian. Black veins crawl through its metal. This thing is massive, easily larger than any church bell you've ever seen. And unlike the one above, this one isn't resting. It's embedded, sunk into the earth like it was dropped from heaven and left to rot. And here's the worst part. You can see the outline of a face in the bronze, not sculpted, not artistic, pressed, a mouth mid-scream, a pair of closed eyelids, a furrowed brow, like something was inside when the molten metal cooled. You whisper, "What are you?" The chamber doesn't answer, but the walls, they pulse, faintly, and then with slow inevitability, a wind stirs from behind the broken bell, icy stale and wrong. Not just air, memory, the kind you don't want to remember. Suddenly you see flashes, a hooded crowd around a furnace, chanting but not in Latin, older, deeper. A girl eyes open wide, glowing with silver light being led toward the molten mold. A voice she will carry us into forever. And then the scream, not in your ears, in your bones. As if your skeleton has remembered something your brain never knew. You fall to your knees. When you recover, you find something glinting between the bell shards. It's a key, bone white, not ivory, but actual bone. Carved into its hilt is the same symbol from earlier, a bell split in half with a single eye hovering above. You pocket the key, though it feels like a sin just touching it. Then you hear footsteps, not yours, deliberate, barefoot, slow. You stand clutching the tongue in one hand and the key in the other. The footsteps stop, then come from another direction. You spin. No one. Again. Behind you. Nothing. Then a whisper. Watcher. Your stomach drops. You remember the diary. She needs a watcher. You assumed Horak meant a guardian, someone to prevent her ringing. But what if that's not it? What if she doesn't want to be watched? What if the watcher is something else entirely? Something that walks when she wakes. Your heart hammers in your chest. You turn and run past the shattered mold, through the side passage, and into another hall. This one is carved directly into the earth. No mortar, no stonework, just raw, worm-chewed tunnel. The air is heavy with sound, but not noise. A pressure like someone humming just below your hearing range. As you walk, you notice handprints in the dirt walls, some human-sized others. Not long-fingered, too many knuckles. You joke to yourself. Probably just the Bellmaker's avant-garde yoga club, but the silence doesn't laugh back. Eventually, the tunnel opens into a domed chamber with a shallow pool at its center. The water is black as ink, and so still it looks like glass. Above it hangs a massive chain, rusted and wet, descending from a hole in the ceiling that vanishes into shadow. And attached to the end of the chain, a mirror. No, not quite. A bell, made of polished obsidian, perfectly reflective. No clapper, no markings. It hovers just inches above the water's surface. And yet somehow it feels heavier than the world. You step forward, but the air pushes back, like walking into a thunderstorm where the lightning hasn't quite decided whether to strike. You raise the bronze tongue. The obsidian bell pulses its surface, rippling like water, though it doesn't move. A voice, your own, says softly, "Don't." You freeze, because you didn't say that, and yet it came from your mouth. That's when you realize the bell is echoing your thoughts before you think them. It's not a bell. It's a mirror of sound, not ringing out, but ringing in. One historian from the 18th century claimed to have found a dark bell buried under Prague that could reveal the architecture of sin through tone. He died babbling in rhyme and was buried in a lead coffin. Others think it was just a metaphor, but seeing this, you're not so sure anymore. You turn away before it speaks again, and that's when you hear her, high above, in the real bell. She rings, just once. No one pulled the rope. You don't remember falling, but your knees hit the stone. Everything goes sideways. The water in the pool vibrates. The chain groans. And above, somewhere in the tower, something opens. The sound doesn't fade. It stretches. Not a chime, but a pulse. A pressure wave that moves through your body like someone trying keys on a lock made of bone and memory. Your teeth vibrate. Your fingers twitch. Your heartbeat tries to match the bell's rhythm and fails spectacularly. Somewhere above, stone grinds on stone. A door, maybe, or a sarcophagus. You scramble to your feet. The obsidian bell behind you is no longer still. Its surface ripples like a pond, disturbed by a single drop. You don't look into it again. You've read enough fairy tales to know what happens when you stare into cursed, reflective objects. Spoiler, you never come back out. Back through the tunnel you run, ducking and slipping and smacking your elbow at least 3 times. Each time the echo of the bell slithers down after you, not louder, but deeper. It's not about volume. It's about presence. At the end of the corridor, a new path has appeared. You're not hallucinating. This hallway wasn't here before. Or maybe it was, and the tower is simply rearranging itself. You've entered the hollow. Horak mentioned it once, just once. A single line in his journal. I heard my own future scream from the hollow. I was too weak to refuse. You didn't understand it then. Now you do. This place isn't empty. It's waiting. The hall stretches into shadow. You pass arched niches, each one filled with a crude wax figure of a person. Dozens of them. Some sit, some stand, some are broken. Their faces crushed, as though they screamed once, and the echo turned physical. One wears a bellmaker's apron. Another clutches a rope in frozen panic. Each of them faces the same direction. You turn to follow their gaze and see a door, tall, carved, covered in bell motifs, but not regular bells. These ones are wrong. They droop like melted clocks, their mouths open in mute agony. Your hand moves to the key in your pocket, the one made of bone. It fits perfectly. Click. The door groans and slowly swings inward, revealing a library of sorts, if libraries were built by cults who thought vowels were a form of treason. The shelves are curved, spiraling upward into nothing. Scrolls, not books, fill the slots written in dozens of languages. You spot one in Old Church Slavonic, another in Basque, a few in languages you're pretty sure aren't real, or at least shouldn't be real. Fringe theorists love this part of the legend. They say the Bellmaker was part of an ancient group, the Silent Choir, that believed sound wasn't just vibration, but command. That the right frequency could bend stone-crack minds or open doors between worlds. Most historians chalk that up to dramatic nonsense, though several admit the name Silent Choir did appear in one 14th century excommunication document, sealed by 4 bishops and, weirdly, a beekeeper. In the center of the room lies a pedestal. Upon it rests a scroll far newer than the others sealed with black wax. You crack it open. It's not written, it's etched. Tiny grooves carved into the parchment in concentric circles. You run a finger across it, and something inside your head clicks. You hear whispers, not aloud, but behind your thoughts. A voice says you are already inside the ring. You don't understand. The scroll hums. You drop it, and from behind the shelves you hear footsteps again. Deliberate, bare, sticky. You turn slowly, expecting to see one of the wax figures animated, or maybe the Watcher in full form. Instead, it's a child, no older than 10, dressed in 18th century clothing, hair perfectly combed, skin pale and eyes too old. She blinks once, then says, "You're carrying her voice. You nod slowly. She continues, "You shouldn't. Not unless you're willing to finish the forging." You don't respond, because how does one politely tell a ghost child they'd rather not complete a possible apocalyptic bell project? She tilts her head. She's remembering you now. That's why it hurts. You hadn't noticed until she said it. But yes, your head is throbbing, like someone ringing a tuning fork in your skull. The bronze tongue in your bag is vibrating gently. The girl reaches out and touches your temple. You flinch, but too late. A vision floods your mind, not of the past of what might be. You see the city above, Prague, empty, frozen mid-breath, pigeons suspended mid-air, people stopped mid-step, all of it under a sky that doesn't make sense too many moons, no stars. Then the bell, hanging above the astronomical clock, towering complete and shining, ringing not with sound but memory, pulling everyone backward-forward, sideways in time, collapsing the city's timeline into a single looping day. You gasp and she lets go. "Not yet," she whispers. "You haven't made the choice." You look around. The scrolls hum gently. The shelves seem taller now. "Who are you?" you manage to ask. "I was the first." The first what? But she's already fading, her eyes fixed on yours. A watcher, and then she's gone. The scroll behind you has unraveled itself, its lines now glowing with a dull red light. It pulses in time with your heartbeat. You pick it up, and the grooves shift slightly under your touch, forming new words. Place the tongue. Ring once, or be consumed. It's not subtle. You leave the room, heart pounding. Every passage behind you seals silently. The wax figures are gone now. The hallway is empty. As you ascend, you hear the bell again. 2 rings. Soft. But now something else joins the tone. A voice, calling your name. And it's your voice, calling up from below, as if you've already made the choice. You don't answer your voice, because that's the first rule of haunted architecture, right? Don't talk to versions of yourself that live in underground echo chambers. Instead, you move faster. The spiral staircase you came down before now rises before you, but steeper, tighter. The stones sweat. Not metaphorically, actual beads of condensation form along the walls as if the tower itself is breathing, or perspiring from effort. As you ascend, the bronze tongue pulses in your bag, gently thudding against your thigh like a metronome for madness. Another bell chime echoes through the stone, softer this time, more like a sigh than a sound. You count, that's 3. And somewhere up ahead, the air shifts. You reach the base of the main chamber, again the place where you first saw the rope move. But now the bell above is swinging, gently, lazily. The rope snakes back and forth, making the faintest tick-tick sound as it brushes the wooden floor. This shouldn't be happening. No one else is here. Right you approach, cautiously, half expecting something to drop from above, a clapper, a limb, maybe another unnervingly polite ghost child. But instead you find something worse, a handprint, on the inside of the bell's mouth, small, faint, pressed into the tarnished bronze as if someone trapped inside had tried to push their way out. You feel your stomach lurch. That print wasn't there before. And as you stare at it, the edges of the bell ripple, just a bit, like heat haze on asphalt. The ringing stops, dead silence, but then you hear breathing, not yours, not close, far, far below maybe, or inside the bell itself. A rattling inhale, slow and effortful, as though someone or something is waking up after a very long sleep and is not entirely sure it wants to. You think of the stories how medieval bell makers would baptize bells by casting them with holy water wine, even drops of blood from the village children, to tie the voice of the bell to the community. Sounds quaint until you consider that Prague's most infamous bell maker had no children of his own, or at least none who stayed on the records. You place your hand against the outer surface of the bell. Warm. You jerk it back. Not warm like metal catching sunlight. Warm like skin. You back away and almost trip over something on the floor. It's a stool, but not just any stool, the stool. Horrocks' stool. Same velvet cushion, same carved legs. But there's something on it now. A mask. Thin wooden carved into the shape of a distorted face. Not monstrous, just hollow. The kind of expression a marionette might wear when it's not being played with. The eyes are oval and empty. The mouth is a perfect O, as if forever mid-sigh. You don't touch it. You know better. But you kneel to get a closer look, and suddenly you hear whispering right behind you. You whip around. Nothing except the mask is no longer on the stool. It's on the bell rope, tied somehow, dangling like a pendulum, swaying gently, and now the bell rope seems just a little taller than before, almost like it's standing, waiting. You exhale. Okay, sure. Why not? Haunting physics, add that to the list. You grab your bag and open it. The bronze tongue pulses, and the bone key glows faintly even though there's no light source around. You know what has to happen next. Horrocks' final note said it plainly. The tongue completes her, but only once. So you climb. The steps inside the tower are narrower now. They feel like ribs, like you're inside a throat, ascending toward the mouth of something old and hungry. You laugh just once because this all feels like the setup to a terrible joke. What's the difference between a cathedral and a coffin? One of them eventually lets you out. You reach the belfry. The bell above you is enormous, old, covered in soot and ash. Every surface is etched with tiny scratches, like someone tried to claw their way in or out. You don't look too long at the symbols. Some of them make your eyes water. There's a socket on the side of the bell's inner wall. You'd missed it earlier, but now you see the metal brackets. You raise the bronze tongue. It slides in with a perfect, horrifying click. The bell shudders, and then she breathes. No, not air. Time. The moment the tongue is fixed, everything shifts. You feel it in your molars, in your shoes, in your sense of now, like the tower has been displaced by half a second in every direction. Dust falls upward. A raven startled from nowhere flutters in and out of existence mid-flap. Somewhere outside the astronomical clock stops ticking. You hear a voice again. Not yours, not the child's. This one is older, softer. You are not the bell maker. You whisper back, I know, but you heard her cry, yes. Then ring her, once, and your hand, almost of its own accord, reaches out. You wrap your fingers around the rope. It resists you at first, like pulling a nerve, instead of a rope. But then, slowly it yields. You pull. The bell swings, just once. The sound is not loud, not piercing. It is clean, perfect. A single tone that seems to clear the cobwebs off reality, that peels back time like wallpaper and lets you see what's underneath. And, for one heartbeat, you understand everything. What the bell is, what it was made for, what it's meant to do. It's not a tool, not a weapon. It's a compass. It points to the moment of greatest sorrow. And then it pulls. Your legs buckle. Your mind reels. You fall. Back through the floor, through the years, through stories that have never been written, And then darkness, not empty, just waiting. You wake lying on your back, except it's not your back, it's someone else's. Or rather, someone else's. Your clothes are gone, replaced by rough linen and wool. Your fingers, which moments ago bore the slight tan of someone who occasionally uses sunscreen, are now calloused and flecked with soot. You recognize the smell immediately: bell metal, tin copper charcoal smoke. You're in a forge, but not any forge, the Bellmaker's forge. You don't know how you know that it's like the knowledge was tucked behind your ears and just fell out. This is his world, his time. Late 1300s, you think, maybe early 1400s, judging by the tools and the specific shape of the tongs hanging on the wall. You did your Prague homework after all. The room around you flickers in firelight. Tall molds lean against stone walls, bell molds coated in horse dung and clay, ready for a cast. One is shattered on the floor as if something inside it tried to escape before cooling. That's not reassuring. You stand wobbling a bit. The heat makes the air thick and syrupy. You're drenched in sweat already. Outside, through a grimy window, the sun hovers low, a molten coin behind a curtain of soot. Distant bells ring in the city, normal ones, familiar, comforting tones. But here, there's something else ringing. Not a bell. Not quite. It's a voice, still vibrating beneath the timbre of metal, cooling too fast. You move toward the center of the forge. He's there, the Bellmaker, not a monster, not a ghost, a man, gaunt but not skeletal. His hands are steady, cradling a half-finished clapper, turning it gently like he's holding something living. His face is blank, not peaceful, empty, like the act of creation has hollowed him out. And then, without looking, he says your name, your real name, the one only you know, the one you stopped using after 3rd grade because it was too weird or too long or too easily teased. He says it like a lullaby. You flinch. He looks up, smiles faintly. You heard her. You nod. Words don't come yet. She's not angry. She's lonely. You swallow. What is she, you ask? He sets the clapper down. It rings on the anvil, not with sound, but with memory. Suddenly, you're 8 years old again, standing in your grandmother's kitchen. She's baking something. You can't smell it, but the shape of her hand, the curve of her cheek, it's all there. Gone in an instant. She's all the moments we let slip away, he says. All the time we buried to survive the day. You sit on a low stool. Your knees ache. Apparently, time travel doesn't come with ergonomic benefits. Why make a bell out of that, you ask? He laughs dry like wind through brittle grass. Because some things are too loud to carry inside. You have to give them a voice. You notice then, on the shelf above his workbench, the mask, same one you saw before, hollow-eyed, mouth forming the perfect O. You gesture to it. She wears that, you ask. No, that's for the maker, he replies. To hear her clearly, you must become no one. Ah, creepy Zen riddles, right on schedule. You reach into your bag somehow, still with you even through the fracture in time, and withdraw the bronze tongue. It hums faintly. He stares at it like it's an old friend who never visits. That's her voice, he says, but not her name. You glance around the forge. What is her name? He hesitates, and for the first time you see fear flicker in his eyes. You can't say it, he murmurs, not all at once. Her name is a note, each part a sound. Spoken together, it opens the wrong kind of door. You want to ask more, but then everything changes. The air goes still, the fire dies instantly, like snuffed by a god, and the bell molds begin to shake. You both stand. The bellmaker grabs the clapper and holds it close. The ground rumbles under your feet, not violently, but insistently, like the earth is clearing its throat. She's remembering, he says. Me, no. Herself. You move toward the door of the forge, but outside the city is wrong. No one moves. Pigeons hang mid-air, wings paused. Children frozen in mid-run mouths, open in laughter that never leaves their throats. Even the smoke from chimneys is still. The bell above the astronomical clock looms larger than it should. It pulses faintly like a heart. And then everything snaps back. Time resumes. The moment breaks. A scream pierces the air, one of those screams that fold space, ancient and primal, human and not. You hear every fear you've ever had, echo through it, being forgotten, being wrong, being seen too clearly. It comes from the center of town, from the watchtower. The bellmaker grips your arm. She's come back too early, he warns. The chain is incomplete. You realize he means you. She needs the final ring, he says, but only you can give it. Because of course, this all comes down to you, the reluctant protagonist with backpack lint and 2 granola bars left. What happens if I don't? You ask. She'll ring herself, and then she decides what's real. Historians love this bit. Theories abound. Was this a metaphor for political power, a secret cult trying to control perception, or maybe a literal curse forged by a grief-mad craftsman who heard too much silence and decided the world needed one long, unbroken scream instead? No one agrees. They still argue whether the watchtower ever had a bell at all. But here, it clearly does. You step outside. The city is already shifting. Prague's Gothic skyline looks unfamiliar, like a dream version of itself. Some buildings shimmer with impossible angles. Others crackle faintly, as though resisting correction. You head toward the clock, and above you the bell swings once, low, calling you. You run. Not with grace, this is not a Hollywood escape montage, but with the full-body lurch of someone being pursued by something they don't entirely understand. Your breath fogs as the temperature drops in pockets, random and sharp. It's like walking through memories left out in the cold too long. Prague is distorted. Familiar landmarks bend subtly as you pass. The statue of Jan Hus in Old Town Square seems to follow you with its eyes, and the teen church's twin towers lean just slightly inward as if conferring behind your back. You reach the base of the watchtower. It looms, not like a building, like a judgment. You half expect the doors to resist you, to slam shut like they do in horror films when the protagonist gets too close to knowing too much. But instead they swing inward with a groan, revealing a passage lit by flickering candlelight. And there she is, the girl in the bell dress, standing at the base of the spiral staircase, her skirts rustling even though there's no breeze. Her eyes lock with yours, and this time she doesn't run. She simply lifts a hand and gestures, palm open. You hesitate. But what else are you going to do? Go home and pretend this didn't happen. Write a Reddit post titled, "Accidentally time-traveled and got cursed by a sound wave." You take her hand. It's cold, not corpse cold, absence of time cold, like she doesn't exist fully here. As you ascend together, she doesn't speak, but the silence between you feels full. Every footstep echoes with a strange musicality, not just sound, but resonance, like the tower itself is tuning itself to you. Halfway up, you begin to notice carvings on the walls. At first, they look like graffiti, just scratches, but then you realize they're names. Dozens, maybe hundreds, some modern, some ancient, all inscribed with different tools, knives, chisels, even fingernails, all bell-bearers, and all of them ultimately left their stories here. Your guide stops. She points to a section where the stone is still fresh, still untouched. A space left for you. But you're not done yet. At the top of the stairs, the chamber widens again. The great bell hangs like a moon in a metal cradle. But this one is different from the others. It's smoother, blacker, and pulsing faintly with a sound you don't hear with your ears. You feel it in your bones. The girl releases your hand and steps into the shadow of the bell. Her form begins to change, not morphing grotesquely, not horror movie stuff, just refining, crystallizing. Her dress no longer appears stitched together from silence and grief, but now shines faintly made of thousands of small hammered coins. Karen's fair. You realize distantly that every step you've taken here was paid for with something. The Bellmaker's sorrow, your sleep, and maybe someone else's time. The girl gestures again, this time toward the rope. You step forward. The bell before you isn't waiting. It's watching. The rope twitches, once, twice. You reach for it, but the moment your fingers touch the braid, your mind fractures. Suddenly, you're in another Prague. 1620, White Mountain, the battle that ended Bohemian independence. The bell is ringing in reverse, drawing soldiers back into their childhoods. Flash, now 1942. Reinhard Heydrich's car drives past the watchtower. The bell vibrates so deeply, the cobblestones crack. No one notices. Flash now, 1968. Soviet tanks crawl through the streets. The bell doesn't ring, it weeps. Each era superimposes itself over the chamber like layers of old wallpaper. You stagger, she steadies you, and now finally she speaks. Only 3 words you must choose. This is the test, the real one. You can ring the bell, complete the chain, fulfill Horrocks' prophecy, whatever that actually means, or you can walk away, let someone else do it. Someone stronger, wiser, someone who didn't almost cry in the stairwell when the mask disappeared. Historians still argue whether Horrocks' bell ever rang at all. Some claim the sound would have shattered every window in Prague. Others insist it was so soft, only those who'd lost something could hear it. No recording exists. No documentation beyond conflicting diaries and obscure footnotes in alchemical treatises. But if it did ring, then this is the moment. You take a breath. The rope is warm now, slightly pulsing like a heartbeat. You pull. The bell swings. Once, and this time the sound is not clean, not pure. It's personal. The bell doesn't just toll, it tells. You hear the voice of someone you lost, their laugh, a secret they never got to share. You smell a book you forgot you loved. You taste the air of a night where nothing happened, but you still remember it as perfect. And then nothing. Silence, not dead silence, held silence, like the universe inhaled and decided to wait. The girl smiles. She places her hand on your chest, and then you wake again, not back in the forge, not in the watchtower, not even in Prague. You're in a room, wooden walls, dim light, a velvet chair, a mask on the table. Your mask, a mirror across from you, shows your face but just slightly wrong. Not older, not younger, just shifted. And then the smallest of chimes. Not a bell this time, but a clock. Tick, tick. You hear footsteps on the stairs. Someone else is coming up. And now it's your turn to decide what story they're walking into. You don't turn toward the footsteps. Not yet. Because somehow you already know who's coming. And knowing doesn't make it easier. Your fingers graze the mask on the table. It's heavier than it looks. Smooth in the places that catch the light, but gritty around the edges, as if it's only half formed. You resist the urge to put it on. Again, the chime from the clock, subtle but impossible to ignore. Tick, tick, tick. The door opens behind you. Soft steps. The floorboards creak, not like they're complaining, but like they're whispering secrets you're not ready to hear. Still here, the voice says. It's the Bellmaker, except not quite. This version of him is older, or maybe younger. Hard to say. Time isn't behaving right in this place. He walks past you and picks up the mask. Doesn't put it on either, just holds it. This is where I first heard her, he murmurs. Before the forge, before everything. You glance around the room. Books line the walls, ancient tomes with crumbling spines. Manuscripts in languages you recognize from textbooks but can't read now. Latin, Old Church Slavonic, something that looks suspiciously like a musical scale etched into rawhide. The Bellmaker notices your gaze. Historians don't know this room exists, he says. They argue whether I even existed. Some claim I was a metaphor, a symbol of the death of craftsmanship in the face of industrialization. He chuckles dryly, as if poetry were ever a substitute for proof. A breeze stirs through the room, except there are no windows. Just the scent of metal wax and something sweet like burnt sugar and rosemary. You approach the desk. Laid out on it, a map of Prague, not the tourist version. This one has no street names, just a web of lines connecting various points, the clock, the cathedral, the bridge, the tower. And at the center, inked in deep red, is your name. I didn't put that there, the Bellmaker says before you ask. She did. After you rang the bell, you blink. But I just pulled the rope. That wasn't, you finished the sound, he interrupts. That's the only part that matters. You sit, because of course there's more. There's always more. You need to choose what happens next, he says. The ring you released, it's echoing. It's touching other moments, other people, and not all of them will know what to do with it. He spreads out a smaller paper, what looks like a letter. The handwriting is jagged and anxious, full of ink blots and rushed loops. It's from a woman named Clara, dated 1897. I heard her today, she writes, inside the iron bell above St. Nicholas. But she did not speak, she sang, in a child's voice. I remembered my brother's death, and then I forgot it again. Is this what madness feels like? Or memory, another paper? A scribbled diagram from 1963. A man named František had traced sound waves bouncing through tunnels beneath the old Jewish cemetery. He'd found patterns, bell-shaped echoes, frequencies impossible for normal instruments. I think the golem wasn't a man he wrote. I think it was a chord. And then chillingly, on the back of a theater playbill from 2004, a scrawl. She's choosing now. You close your eyes. You feel the ringing again, subtle, persistent. It's choosing. And maybe that's the worst part. You're part of the sound now. The Bellmaker leans in. Do you remember what she said to you? Just before the bell tolled, you nod slowly. You must choose. But the choice wasn't between ringing or walking away, he says. The real choice is what you believe she is. Grief, memory, punishment, a second chance. He steps back, and what you believe becomes truth. You sit with that. It's the kind of statement that takes up space, the kind that rearranges you a little. Historians still argue whether the haunting of Prague was an event, a series of psychological breakdowns triggered by mass hysteria, or something stranger. They've found evidence acoustic anomalies, diary entries, bells that emit sounds and frequencies outside human hearing. But nothing definitive. They want her to be a myth, because myths can be filed away, categorized. What you've just lived, not so easy. The Bellmaker hands you the mask. It's lighter now and warmer. You look into the mirror again. This time, your reflection looks calm. Still a little rattled, yes, but somehow stronger, as if facing the unexplainable has carved a space in you for something new. You slip the mask over your face, and the world slips away. You're back in the watchtower. But it's night now. Moonlight glows through the broken windows, painting the stones in silver. The bell hangs above, still and perfect. The girl is there too. She's smiling, not sadly, but with a kind of quiet relief. You saw, she says. You nod, and she offers her hand once more. But this time, you don't need to take it. You simply walk beside her down the spiral steps, back into the city, and this Prague. This one is different, not because the buildings are changed, but because you are. Because once you've heard the true sound of something forgotten, the world can't ever be quite the same again. Section 10. Walking through the ancient streets, you notice something odd. The city hums softly, not the usual bustle of tourists or clatter of trams, but a deep resonant vibration like the heartbeat of Prague itself. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable if you pay attention. A faint echo of the bell's toll lingers in the air, weaving through the cobblestones and stone arches. You remember a historical tidbit. Prague's old town was once known as the City of 100 Bells. Each bell tuned to its own distinct note, creating a symphony of sound that shaped daily life. Bells marked everything from market hours to curfews, signaling life's rhythms with a musical precision. Some historians still argue whether this collective bell system was purely functional or if it held mystical significance like a soundscape that linked the community's soul. As you stroll, the wind picks up, carrying whispers just beyond your hearing. You pause by the Charles Bridge, its Gothic statues, watching silently. They seem almost alive in the moonlight faces, shadowed but hinting at centuries of secrets. A breeze rustles leaves at your feet, and you catch the scent of burnt rosemary again, the same scent from the Bellmaker's hidden room. You feel a presence nearby. Turning, you spot a figure in a dark cloak leaning against the balustrade. It's the girl in the bell dress, no longer ethereal, but more real, her eyes reflecting the shimmering Vltava River. She gestures toward the bridge, then upward. Your gaze follows her gesture and sees the old Jewish cemetery rising on the hill, its twisted trees and ancient gravestones bathed in silver light. You recall that in the late 1800s, Clara had written about hearing her song inside the cemetery's tunnels. She believed the bell's resonance connected the living and the dead in a delicate dance, a haunting lullaby for souls lost but not forgotten. As you approach the cemetery, the air cools and thickens. The city's hum fades into near silence. You feel a subtle vibration beneath your feet, like the city's pulse slowing down, holding its breath. The trees sway, though no wind stirs. Their skeletal branches reach toward the sky, resembling twisted fingers grasping for something just out of reach. Here, history and myth blur. The cemetery is a place where reality bends the sight, where the legendary golem of Prague is said to have been created. Scholars debate if the golem was a man, a creature, or a metaphor for protection against persecution. Some fringe theories even suggest the golem was linked to sound magic, created through secret chants and mystical vibrations. You hear a faint chime echoing from within the crypts. It's neither the bell nor the clock, something softer, almost like a heartbeat, carried on a breeze. You step cautiously inside. The darkness swallows you, but your senses sharpen. The stones beneath your feet hum gently, the echoes of centuries mingling with the bell's lingering song. You feel the weight of forgotten prayers and whispered names, the memories etched into every cracked wall. Suddenly, a soft voice breaks the silence. It's the girl again, whispering an old lullaby in a language you don't understand, but somehow feel in your bones. Her voice wraps around you like a warm shawl, easing the tension in your shoulders. You close your eyes, letting the melody wash over you. It's a song of remembrance, of loss, but also of hope. You wonder, is this the bell's true purpose? To remind us that even in silence there's a song waiting to be heard. Historians still argue whether the Bellmaker's curse was a literal enchantment or a symbolic reflection of Prague's turbulent past. But standing here surrounded by echoes and shadows, you realize that some stories don't need answers, they need to be felt. You open your eyes, the girl smiles, and the cemetery's shadows seem just a little less dark. The lullaby fades into the night as you step out of the cemetery, the chill from the tombstones lingering on your skin. The city around you has shifted again, streets glistening with rain reflections, shimmering like ghosts in the puddles. The distant hum of life is returning, but it's slower now, more deliberate. You notice the clock tower in the distance, its face glowing softly. It's the Prague astronomical clock, a masterpiece from the 15th century that still captivates tourists and locals alike. You recall how in its heyday, the clock was more than just a timepiece. It was a marvel of engineering, astronomy, and art, an early attempt to make sense of the universe's chaos. There's an obscure tale tied to the clock's creator, Master Hanush. Legend says the city's council blinded him after he completed the clock, fearing he might replicate its wonder elsewhere. Historians still debate whether this story is fact or fiction, but the legend adds to the clock's mystique, much like the bell's curse. As you approach the clock, the girl in the bell dress appears beside you again. This time, she points upward beyond the clock face toward the sky. You follow her gaze and see stars twinkling behind clouds, arranged in patterns that look almost deliberate, like a celestial bell curve ringing through the night. Your mind drifts to a quirky tidbit. You once read some Prague residents believed the city's bells were attuned to the stars, their ringing influencing not just earthly events, but celestial alignments. Whether superstition or ancient wisdom, the idea lingers in your thoughts. The clock strikes midnight, its chimes echoing like distant thunder. But beneath the familiar tolls, there's a hidden melody, a sequence of notes you hadn't noticed before, subtle and haunting. It feels like a secret message, a reminder of the bell's song lingering in the city's heart. You realize the bell's curse isn't just about sound, it's about time. Time folded into sound, sound folded into memory. The girl steps closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Every toll changes a moment, every silence keeps a secret. You glance at your watch, which now shows a time that doesn't exist, a moment suspended between past and future. Suddenly, you hear footsteps approaching again, different this time, quicker, more urgent. You turn to see a man in a suit, carrying a small wooden box engraved with strange symbols. His eyes flicker with recognition, as if he knows more than he lets on. He introduces himself as a historian, someone who has been chasing the Bellmaker story for decades. He tells you about a secret society that once guarded the bell's power, a group known only as the Keepers of Silence. They believed the bell could protect the city or destroy it, depending on who controlled its sound. His tone is grave. You've awakened something. Now you have to decide what to do with it. You feel the weight of his words. The curse isn't over, it's just beginning, and you're right in the middle. The historian's eyes gleam with urgency as he places the wooden box on a nearby bench, the faint scent of cedar and old parchment wafting up. You notice a small, intricate lock, carved with the same bell motif you've seen throughout your journey. It's a puzzle, one that seems to hold the next piece of this haunting narrative. You might think this is just a trinket, he says, but inside lies the original Bellmaker's journal. He documented everything, his experiments, the curse, and most importantly, the ritual to end it. You raise an eyebrow. A ritual. The Bellmaker's curse isn't some ghost story. It's real enough to be documented in a secret journal. Somehow this fits, because if this whole experience was just a dream, how could it feel this real, this heavy? You slide the box open. Inside, yellowed pages crackle under your fingertips. The handwriting is precise, with strange diagrams of bells, sound waves, and what looks like arcane symbols. Among them is a drawing of a bell wrapped in vines with the word liberation scrawled beneath it. The historian leans in closer. He believed the curse tied itself to the bell's sound, how it carried grief, memory, and time. But he also thought the bell could be unbound if rung with intention, not just ringing for sorrow, but for release. You remember the moment you pulled the rope and the bell's toll felt personal. Maybe that was the first step. He taps the page. Here's the debate. Historians still argue whether the ritual was ever performed or if the bell's curse is eternal. Some say it was a metaphor for Prague's own suffering, others that it's a real enchantment awaiting its final act. You look at the symbols, a ritual combining sound, light, and something called the breath of the city. You don't understand it fully, but you feel its weight. The historian smiles thinly. You've already started it whether you knew or not. Now you must decide, finish the ritual or leave the curse to linger. You glance at the girl in the bell dress who stands silently nearby. She looks less like a ghost now and more like a guide, an embodiment of choice. You feel the pull of the bell's sound again deep inside your chest, a gentle vibration urging you forward. Outside, the city continues its slow hum, and somewhere beneath it all, the bell waits. You realize the curse isn't just about fear or haunting, it's about connection. Between past and present, grief and healing, sound and silence, you take a deep breath. Maybe you're ready to see this through. You take the journal from the historian's hands, feeling the rough texture of the paper as if the pages themselves pulse with an ancient energy. You flip through the entries, each one a window into the Bellmaker's mind, a man torn between genius and madness, devotion and despair. He wrote about bells not just as instruments, but as living things, vessels of emotion and memory. One passage catches your eye. The bell is a mirror. It reflects what we fear, what we lose, and what we hope to reclaim. To break its curse, one must confront the silence within oneself. You wonder what silence that could be. The kind that follows a scream, or the quiet after a loved one's absence, Or maybe something deeper, a silence you never dared face. The historian gestures toward a faded map folded beneath the journal. This shows the locations of the city's original bells, each with its own frequency. The ritual requires you to visit them all to ring them in sequence. You gulp. The city suddenly seems much bigger and heavier, with history pressing in on you from every direction. You pocket the journal and look to the girl in the bell dress. She smiles softly, as if encouraging you. You start moving through Prague's labyrinthine streets, the journal's map guiding your steps. You pass through markets still brimming with life and alleyways dripping with shadows. Every bell tower you approach feels like a heartbeat, a node in the city's tangled web of sound and memory. At the first tower, you reach up and touch the bell's rope. The leather is worn frayed by centuries of hands just like yours. You pull and the bell tolls deep and sonorous, reverberating through your bones. You feel something shift like a thread pulling loose in a tapestry. At the next bell, the sound is lighter, almost playful, like a secret giggle carried on the wind. The third bell sings a melancholy tune that brings a lump to your throat. With each toll, memories flood you faces. Places laughter tears, like the city itself is breathing stories through its bells. You start to understand the bellmaker's obsession. Bells aren't just signals, they are carriers of life's soundtrack, weaving time and emotion into sound. Historians debate whether the bell sequence was ever truly completed in the past, or if it was meant as an impossible task to keep the curse alive. Fringe theories claim the bells could even influence dreams, pulling people into the bellmaker's realm. You pause at the fourth bell, feeling the weight of history settle around you like a cloak, and then a whisper in your ear. Almost there. You realize the ritual isn't just about the bells, it's about you. The whisper fades, but the weight in your chest lingers, a quiet reminder that you're on the edge of something momentous. The journal's pages rustle in your pocket, like a heartbeat synced with your own. You glance at the map again. Only a few bells remain. You make your way toward the fifth bell, the path winding through narrow streets lit by gas lamps. The city feels alive with unseen eyes watching your progress. You brush past an old clockmaker's shop, its windows fogged but flickering with candlelight. A small sign reads, "Timekeeper's Rest." You wonder if the bellmaker himself might have passed through here, leaving traces of his curse behind. Approaching the bell tower, you pause. The rope dangles inviting, but heavy with anticipation. You pull, and the bell's tone is deep, mournful, like a slow sigh from the past. The vibrations ripple outward, touching every corner of the city, stirring shadows. You remember a quirky fact in medieval Prague bell. Ringing was considered a form of protection. Bells were rung to ward off evil spirits, summon help during fires, or signal invasions. Some say the ringing could even influence the weather. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were superstition or early science. The sound carries a strange comfort, like a lullaby sung by the city itself. You close your eyes, letting the echoes fill you. The sixth bell awaits you near the old university. The building's facade is cloaked in ivy, its windows dark but full of whispers. You're reminded that Prague's Charles University, founded in 1348, is one of Europe's oldest, a beacon of knowledge through centuries of turmoil. You wonder if scholars there ever debated the bellmaker's curse, writing footnotes and dissertations about something they couldn't quite explain. You smile at the thought of dusty professors arguing over a ghost story. At the seventh bell, the tone is sharp and clear, cutting through the night like a whispered secret. As you ring it, you sense the city holding its breath. The air thickens with possibility. You feel a subtle shift beneath your feet, like the ground is aligning with the bell's song. You check the journal. The final bells form a chord, a harmony that must be struck to complete the ritual. The eighth bell waits at the cathedral, its grand archways towering above. You take a moment, your breath misting in the cool air. As you pull the rope, the bell's sonorous note resonates, filling the night with a profound sense of peace. You realize the curse is lifting, not with violence or fear, but through connection and sound. The last bell, the ninth, hangs above the very tower where your journey began. You climb the winding stairs, heart pounding. The city sprawls beneath you, bathed in moonlight. You pull the rope one final time. The bell's toll is a symphony of all the others, a beautiful haunting culmination. For a moment time feels suspended, and then silence. The silence after the final bell's toll is profound. It's not empty, but full like the moment right before a breath is taken, or the stillness when a wave pulls back from the shore. You stand on the tower's edge, looking down at a city transformed by sound and story. The girl in the bell dress appears beside you, her smile gentle and knowing. She raises her hand, and you feel the soft hum return, weaving through the air like a warm blanket. It's the city's heartbeat, restored, no longer burdened by the curse, but carrying the weight of memory and hope. You remember the Bellmaker's words from the journal about confronting silence and finding liberation. You understand now that the curse was never about punishment, but about healing through sound time and connection. As dawn breaks, the first light spills over Prague's rooftops, casting golden hues on ancient stones. The bells are silent, but their song lingers in the breeze, a gentle reminder that every ending is also a beginning. The historian nods his eyes, reflecting gratitude and relief. You've done what many thought impossible. You smile, feeling the exhaustion of the journey settle into calm. The girl steps back, fading slowly into the morning mist, her bell dress shimmering like a memory. You take a deep breath, letting the peaceful quiet wrap around you. The city wakes up alive and free. And you're part of its story now, a keeper of its secrets and its songs. You feel the echoes of the bells, the whispers of history, and the gentle pull of dreams as they carry you back towards sleep. Now, as the story settles softly into the quiet corners of your mind, imagine the city of Prague gently waking from its long slumber. The ancient stones, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, glisten in the early light. The bells, once heavy with the weight of curses and secrets, rest peacefully, carrying only the melody of hope and remembrance. Breathe deeply, feeling the cool morning air fill your lungs. The city's hum has softened into a gentle lullaby, a soothing rhythm that matches the calm, steady beat of your own heart. Let your thoughts drift freely, unburdened and light, like leaves floating on a quiet river. Remember that the echoes of the Bellmaker's tale are not meant to frighten, but to connect, to remind you that even in darkness there is sound, and in silence there is life, waiting to be heard. Hold on to that warmth as you slip further into sleep, wrapped in the comfort of stories that span time and space. Good night, and may your dreams carry you softly through the night.